Let's talk about something most people overlook when analyzing international politics. Geography, not just maps and borders, but what lies beneath the surface. You see, geography isn't just about location, it's about leverage, influence, advantage. And in this context, Pakistan's location is its most powerful asset. It's no exaggeration to say that geography is one of the main reasons America is openly supporting Pakistan, even if that means ruffling feathers with India. Let's start by looking at the big picture. America's global strategy since the end of World War II has always been about proximity to pressure points. It positions itself wherever it can monitor rivals and shape events. And here's the thing, Pakistan sits right at the intersection of China, Afghanistan, Iran, and India. A geographic jackpot for any superpower wanting to keep its hands in the game. Think about it. To the west of Pakistan, there's Afghanistan, a country America invested 20 years and billions of dollars in. The US withdrawal didn't erase those strategic interests. It just changed the way they are managed. Now, with boots off the ground, America still needs intelligence, logistical access, and operational oversight in that region. Pakistan, whether willingly or manipulatively, offers that doorway. And let's not pretend this is charity. It's transactional. Pakistan gets aid, recognition, and arms. The US gets positioning. To the north, there's China, the biggest long-term threat to American global dominance. And guess what? China's flagship Belt and Road Initiative runs straight through Pakistan in the form of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC. It's a $60 plus billion investment connecting China to the Arabian Sea, giving it faster trade routes and military access. This scares Washington more than most people realize, and that fear creates opportunity. Supporting Pakistan gives Rika a front row seat to watch and possibly counter China's expansion. Now, let's shift lenses, you might ask, but isn't India more powerful, more democratic, more aligned with Western values? Shouldn't America be backing India instead? On paper, yes. In Pakistan's geopolitical leverage theory, yes. But here's where psychology and politics collide. India, despite partnerships like Quad and tech agreements, refuses to be anyone's puppet. It's fiercely independent. It trades with Russia. It defends its own interests even when they don't align with Washington's. That's admirable but inconvenient, especially for a country like the US, which is used to calling the shots. Pakistan, on the other hand, has historically played the game. It has military and intelligence cooperation with the US that dates back decades. And even when the relationship breaks down, like during the Osama bin Laden raid, it always rebounds. Why? Because America knows that Pakistan is indispensable when it comes to regional access. Its terrain, borders, ports, and political fragility make it easy to negotiate with or influence or pressure. That's not a partnership based on values. It's a partnership based on utility. Now, let's go even deeper psychologically. Superpowers don't operate with sentiment. They operate with risk calculus. The question is always, where do we have the most control? Supporting Pakistan gives the US a controllable, if unstable, ally. India, while valuable, is not controllable. It's confident, it's rising. And to some in the West, that confidence looks threatening. So while the US publicly praises India, it often hedges its bets by investing strategically in Pakistan. This duality isn't accidental, it's designed. It creates a balancing act in South Asia where no single country becomes strong enough to dominate. This kind of balance keeps America relevant, keeps American arms flowing. That keeps American presence vital, and more importantly, it ensures that any regional conflict, especially between India and Pakistan, requires American mediation. That's not peacekeeping, that's power brokering. And all of it hinges on Pakistan's location, its proximity to rival states, its access to airspace and sea routes, its role as a buffer zone, a corridor, a geopolitical hinge. You take away the map and Pakistan is just another developing country. But with the map, it becomes a pawn worth protecting, even if it means undermining a stronger ally like India. So what does this tell us? It tells us that in the world of diplomacy, power isn't always about strength. It's about position. And when a superpower like America sees a country like Pakistan sitting on a geopolitical goldmine, it doesn't matter how unstable, corrupt, or conflicted that country might be. It matters that they're useful. And that's what we must remember. Global alliances aren't built on trust, they're built on leverage. And geography in today's world is the most underrated form of leverage there is. Let that settle in, because the next time you see a headline that seems irrational, support for the wrong side, aid going to a broken system, alliances that seem backwards, you'll understand. It's not irrational, it's strategic. America doesn't play favorites, it plays positions. Let's go a layer deeper into this complex equation. If you really want to understand why America is openly backing Pakistan even when it risks straining ties with India, you need to look through the lens of long-game strategy, CPEC, China, and US strategic moves, particularly in the context of China, because this isn't just about South Asia. This is about the global chessboard, and one of the biggest, boldest moves on that board is China's Belt and Road Initiative. Most people have heard the name. Few actually understand the implications. At its core, the Belt and Road Initiative, or BARI, is China's vision for a new global order. An infrastructure and trade empire stretching across Asia into Europe, down into Africa, and touching the edge of Latin America. Roads, ports, pipelines, railways. China is building not just physical routes. And one of the most strategic arteries of this initiative runs right through Pakistan. It's called the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. On the surface, it's a trade corridor, a $60 plus billion investment that links China's western province of Xinjiang to the port city of Gwadar on Pakistan's Arabian Sea coastline. But underneath the infrastructure, there's something more: power projection. And here's where America gets nervous, because CPEC doesn't just give China economic access, it gives it military flexibility, strategic positioning, and global visibility. It opens the door for Chinese naval presence in the Arabian Sea. It creates alternative energy routes that bypass US monitored waters. It builds influence with governments and populations in key regions. And all of it is happening on America's former turf, right where Washington once called the shots. Now let's bring psychology into it. Superpowers operate from a place of deep insecurity, even if they never show it. The moment another power starts building influence, building relationships, building systems outside the Western framework, alarm bells start ringing. The US doesn't just see CPEC as an infrastructure project. It sees it as a declaration, a statement from Beijing that says, we're not just participating in the global economy, we're leading it. So what does America do? It looks for pressure points. And one of the most accessible and historically pliable pressure points around CPEC is Pakistan. By openly supporting Pakistan through military funding, diplomatic gestures, even intelligence collaborations, the US gains access, not full control, but influence. And influence is the currency of modern power. America doesn't need to own the corridor. It just needs to monitor it, shape it, stall it when necessary, or use Pakistan as a negotiating chip against China. Here's the deeper truth. It's not about Pakistan at all, it's about containing China. And Pakistan, due to its economic vulnerability and geographical position, becomes a bridge or a barrier. And the US wants to make sure it's the latter. And here's the part no one talks about. India knows this. India has made it clear it opposes CPEC because the corridor runs through disputed territory in Kashmir. India sees it as an infringement on sovereignty, a strategic provocation. But when America supports Pakistan, even tacitly, it sends a message to India. We're not fully on your side, not when it comes to China. This is where the psychological depth really kicks in. Because for India, the betrayal isn't just strategic, it's emotional. India has invested decades into building partnerships with the US, from defense to diplomacy to tech. And yet, when push comes to shove, America keeps one foot firmly planted in Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan gives America leverage over China. And that matters more than loyalty or values. And that's the paradox of international politics. It's not about who's right or wrong, it's about who's useful at the right time. Right now, America needs Pakistan, not because it believes in its vision, but because it's a doorway into China's ambitions. And if America can't stop the Belt and Road directly, it will chip weapons, dependency influence away at it from the sides, stir friction, slow progress, influence, decision makers. That's why supporting Pakistan becomes a tactical necessity, not a moral choice. So the next time someone tells you that America's alliance with Pakistan is rooted in old Cold War ties or post-9/11 cooperation, you'll know better. It's not about history, it's about now, it's about positioning. And most of all, it's about playing defense against a rising empire. Let me leave you with this thought. Let's talk about power, the kind that doesn't scream but whispers, the kind that hides in plain sight. I'm talking about military dependence, arms deals, and strategic loyalty. And in this game, Pakistan's relationship with the United States is not just about friendship, it's about control. Because when we step back and look at the global picture, we start to see the deeper reason why America keeps showing up for Pakistan, even when it contradicts logic, values, or partnerships with countries like India. The truth is, military dependence is one of the most effective tools of influence. It's not flashy, it's not emotional, it's transactional, and it works. Let's break this down. India is a rising superpower, no doubt about it. It has one of the largest militaries in the world. It's advancing in technology, space, cyber defense, you name it. But here's what makes India different. It's diversifying. It doesn't want to be dependent on anyone, especially not the United States. India buys arms from Russia, from France, develops its own. It has built a defense ecosystem that's designed to give it freedom, not favor. That kind of autonomy is powerful. But for the US, it's also inconvenient. You see, America doesn't just want allies. It wants access. It wants alignment. And most importantly, it wants influence over how weapons are used, how decisions are made, where military doctrine flows. That level of access is difficult with India because India guards its sovereignty like a lion. It doesn't bend to pressure, and it certainly doesn't sign blank checks just to appease foreign partners. That's respectable. But from America's standpoint, it's also limiting. Now let's look at Pakistan. Here's a country that has been deeply tied into the US military-industrial complex for decades. From fighter jets to night vision, from training to tactical support, Pakistan's military infrastructure has been heavily shaped by American dollars, American system, MIMS, and American strategy. Even when diplomatic relations have wavered, even when trust has been broken, those military ties remained intact. Why? Because dependence creates loyalty, and loyalty creates leverage. Pakistan needs the US not just for weapons but for legitimacy, and that need becomes a powerful bargaining chip for America. It means Pakistan is more likely to comply, more likely to cooperate, and more likely to align with American interests when it matters most, especially in conflict zones or high-stakes diplomatic moves. And here's the part most people miss. Military support isn't just about defense, it's about economics. When a country depends on American arms, it also depends on American training, spare parts, upgrades, and intelligence systems. That dependency becomes multi-layered. It doesn't end when the jets are delivered. It begins. And for a superpower like the US, this becomes a long-term investment in control. Now, think about the psychology of this. Dependence changes behavior. Whether we're talking about individuals or nations, the principle is the same. When you rely on someone for your security, you start adjusting your decisions to keep that relationship intact. You tolerate more. You question less. You compromise faster. That's the hidden cost of military aid. It buys silence, loyalty, and often obedience. In contrast, India's independence makes it unpredictable, not unstable, but uncontrollable. That's not a risk America is always India's assent and Western anxiety willing to take. So what does it do? It keeps its foot in Pakistan's camp. Not because Pakistan is more stable, not because it's more democratic, but because it's more influenceable. This isn't about who's better on paper. It's about who's more manageable in practice. And in global politics, manageability often wins over merit. And let's be clear, Pakistan plays this game too. It knows its leverage. It knows that as long as it keeps its military tethered to US supply chains, it has a bargaining chip. It can trade intelligence. It can offer airspace. It can promise See, access to regions where American boots are no longer welcome. This is not passive diplomacy, it's calculated survival. So when you hear about new arms packages, new funding, new military support going to Pakistan, don't assume it's just policy. It's a power move, a silent handshake, a reminder that loyalty can still be bought, not with ideals but with weapons. And that's the heart of the issue. This isn't a battle between good and bad allies. It's a battle between influence and independence. America chooses support based on control, not compatibility. And Pakistan, by staying tethered to American arms, remains a tool that the US can still maneuver. Here's what I want you to take away from this. ChatGPT said, "Let's be brutally honest about something that most analysts gloss over. Power doesn't like competition, especially not when that competition comes from a place it once ignored, underestimated, or tried to shape." That's exactly what's happening with India. Its rise isn't just about GDP or population or global headlines. It's something far more uncomfortable for the West. India is growing on its own terms. Now, to understand why America is doubling down on its support for Pakistan despite its long-standing alliance with India, we have to look at this through a different lens, not diplomacy but dominance. For decades, America functioned as the global center of gravity. It dictated trade, set the rules, controlled narratives, and brokered peace when it felt like it. And for the most part, countries complied either out of fear, dependence, or hope of favor. But today we're seeing a rebalancing, and India sits right at the center of that shift. Here's the problem for Washington. India isn't playing the game the way they expected. India doesn't just nod along anymore. It doesn't cave under pressure, whether it's choosing to buy oil from Russia during sanctions or refusing to take sides in great power conflicts or investing in its own tech and defense ecosystems. India is moving like a country that doesn't need permission. And that right there is what makes the US uncomfortable, because rising powers who operate independently are hard to manage, hard to predict, hard to influence. And for a superpower like America, that's dangerous. It means there's another voice at the table that isn't echoing yours. And worse, other countries are starting to listen to that voice. That's why India is no longer just rising. It's challenging quietly, confidently, and philosophically. Let's bring it down to the psychological level. The American identity at its core is built on leadership, not just economic or military leadership, but ideological leadership. The idea that its values, its systems, its way of doing things should be the global default. But India doesn't buy into that fully. It's democratic, yes, but it's not Western. It's rooted in its own history, its own civilizational thinking, its own priorities, and it's not afraid to walk a path that diverges from the West, especially when it believes it's in its long-term interest. That kind of self-authorship, the courage to define your path without waiting for approval, is rare in global politics, and America doesn't know how to respond to it. So what does it do? It returns to the strategies that worked in the past. It invests in the weaker, the tactic of dividing powers player, the more dependent player, the one it can still influence. That player is Pakistan. Not because Pakistan is a stronger ally, but because it's a counterweight tool, a way to remind India we still hold the strings that matter. It's like this. When you can't control the rising power, you try to contain it. Not openly, not with conflict, but with calculated support for its rivals. Subtle sabotage framed as diplomacy. This isn't about war. It's about slowing the momentum, keeping the rising force just busy enough, just uncertain enough that it doesn't become unmanageable. And here's where philosophy meets strategy. Indy, A represents something more than geopolitical power. It represents the possibility of a multi-polar world. A world where no single country dominates the narrative. A world where influence is earned, not assumed. That future terrifies those who've grown comfortable sitting at the top of the pyramid. So when the US backs Pakistan, even when logic says otherwise, it's not just about regional politics. It's about protecting an older order. But this strategy is short-sighted. Because here's what history teaches us. The more you resist inevitable change, the faster it comes. Trying to contain India's rise by supporting Pakistan is like trying to stop the tide with a sandcastle. It might buy you time, but it won't stop the wave. India isn't asking for approval, it's earning respect, and that's exactly what makes it a threat to those still clinging to control. So the next time you wonder why America makes choices that seem contradictory, why it continues to fund or arm or diplomatically protect Pakistan despite everything, it's because it's not just reacting to the present, it's trying to delay a future it can't dominate. Here's what I want you to take away. The world is shifting not by accident, but by design. The old power structures are being challenged not with war, but with independence, and that scares those who've grown used to writing the rules. Watch who they empower, and more importantly, ask why, because in that question lies the truth they don't want you to see. There's a hard truth most people don't want to hear. Chaos is profitable, and not just profitable. It's strategic, especially in international politics. And when you understand this one truth, everything starts to make more sense. Why America continues to support Pakistan despite its instability, why South Asia always feels one decision away from conflict, and why progress in the region often feels like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Here's what's really happening. Instability serves the interests of the powerful. Let me say that again because it's the key to understanding why America isn't in a hurry to see lasting peace between India and Pakistan. A stable, economically integrated, politically united South Asia is a nightmare scenario for anyone who thrives on influence and interference. Because the moment India rises unchallenged in its region, the need for external mediators, arms suppliers, and global helpers disappears. The region stops being a battleground and becomes a marketplace. And that shift would force superpowers like the United States to step back, to become observers rather than architects. But that's not how power likes to operate. Now, if you've been following this line of thought, you already know that India's independence, its refusal to be controlled, is seen as a threat to existing power structures. But the challenge doesn't stop with India's growth. The real fear deep down is what happens if India begins to bring others with it. If its neighbors begin aligning economically, politically, and culturally under India's influence instead of the West's, that's the moment America loses its grip, not just on South Asia, but on the psychological and diplomatic leverage it's used for decades. So how do you prevent that from happening? You create or maintain just enough chaos, not war, not destruction, but tension, fear, uncertainty, enough to keep India distracted, to keep the region divided, to keep Pakistan in need, and to keep America in control. It's not a conspiracy, it's a strategy, and it's been used over and over again across history, across public words versus private deals, continents. Psychologically, it's the same principle you see in dysfunctional relationships. If someone fears they're losing influence, they'll stir drama, not because they enjoy it, but because it keeps them relevant. It keeps the other person reacting instead of leading. That's what America's support for Pakistan achieves. It keeps India in response mode, always watching its borders, always preparing for a conflict that might come, always defending instead of building. And here's the philosophical tragedy. The people of both nations, India and Pakistan, don't want this tension. Most citizens want growth, education, innovation, safety. They want progress. But the cycle continues because powerful actors outside the region continue to benefit from it. Arms sales increase, intelligence operations stay funded, diplomatic influence remains necessary. That's the invisible machinery of modern global politics. And Pakistan, it's caught in the middle. A country that could have evolved past its military-first mindset, past its dependence, past its identity as not India. But instead, it's being propped up not for its potential, but for its usefulness in keeping South Asia divided. Every time a crisis flares up, every time a border heats up, every time a diplomatic incident takes over headlines, ask yourself, who benefits from this? Who profits? Who stays relevant? Because it's not just about defense, it's about dependence. And chaos, when managed just right, keeps everyone looking outward instead of inward. It stalls self-reliance. It delays unity. And for countries trying to rise together, that's fatal. India's greatest challenge isn't just economic reform or military strength. It's breaking out of this cycle of externally induced distraction It's keeping its focus steady, building systems that are resilient to outside manipulation, and remembering that real power comes not from dominance, but from consistency. And for the Indian people, that means recognizing the pattern and refusing to participate in it. We're in an age where global dominance doesn't come from colonizing land, it comes from controlling attention. And if America can keep South Asia focused on fear, suspicion, and division, it will never have to worry about the region becoming truly self-sufficient. So the next time you hear about rising tensions, sudden escalations, or another round of urgent mediation by the West, ask the real question: who wins when South Asia loses focus? Because the answer is always the same. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Let's pull the curtain back for a second, because everything we've talked about so far has built toward this moment. The military deals, the regional chaos, the strategic alliances, they're all visible. You can track the dollars, the treaties, the tensions, but what you can't always see is the part that matters most, the story being told to the world and the one being hidden underneath. This is where things get subtle. Because while America publicly claims neutrality or diplomacy, its support for Pakistan is anything but accidental. It's not clumsy foreign policy, it's deliberate. And one of the biggest reasons it works is because of how it's packaged. Narrative matters, language matters, perception matters. Publicly, Pakistan is framed as a strategic partner, an essential player in regional security, a counter-terrorism ally, a country in need of support for the sake of stability. But behind closed doors, this alliance has less to do with shared values and more to do with quiet leverage, economic, military, and political. The real deals, the ones that shape influence, aren't broadcast on prime-time news. They happen in briefings, closed door or intelligence exchanges, and defense negotiations where agendas are sealed, not signed in public. The public story is clean, sanitized, framed around peace and diplomacy. But the private story is messier because it's not about peace at all. It's about positioning. Here's the trick. As long as the public believes Pakistan is essential, America's actions don't get questioned. Every arms deal looks like an investment in stability. Every intelligence partnership seems like a precaution against terrorism. But under that surface, there's a pattern that's much harder to ignore. These moves repeatedly undermine India's growth, its image, and its influence. It's almost like a game of misdirection. You praise one country publicly while subtly enabling the other. You talk about partnership while keeping options open with its rival. That's not diplomacy, that's performance. And the closing, look beyond the headlines, purpose of that performance is simple: to maintain control while avoiding accountability. This tactic of saying one thing and doing another isn't new. It's rooted in a very human psychological truth. People believe what they're told when it's wrapped in confidence and consistency. America, as a global brand, understands this better than anyone, and so it projects a clean, values-driven front to the public while operating with cold, strategic precision behind the scenes. Now let's connect this to the bigger picture. India doesn't play this game the same way. India speaks more directly. Its policies are more transparent. It doesn't bend its values to fit the Western narrative, and that's exactly what makes it a threat, not militarily but morally. India reminds the world that there are other ways to lead that development. Democracy and independence can coexist without Western endorsement. That kind of self-confidence, that refusal to be choreographed, makes the powers that be uneasy. So what happens? India gets praised publicly but left out of key decisions. Pakistan gets criticized in headlines but supported in contracts, and the people on both sides are fed carefully curated versions of the truth. This isn't just strategy, it's psychological manipulation at the international level. You tell one audience one thing, you do something entirely different, and by the time anyone notices the disconnect, the deal's already done. But here's the deeper philosophical issue. When truth becomes performance, trust disappears. And when trust disappears, the cost isn't just diplomatic, it's spiritual. Nations like people need authenticity to thrive. They need clarity, honesty, and accountability. Without it, they start to decay from within, not because of foreign threats, but because of internal disillusionment. That's where we are now. The United States isn't just shaping policy, it's shaping perception. It's curating a version of reality that keeps its influence intact, even when the facts on the ground say otherwise. And if we're not careful, if we don't question what we're being told, we become participants in our own manipulation. So let me leave you with this.